Fanfic Corner, presented by Animal Girl. I Will Always Be With You, a Luxsoka love story. Chapter 1, written and read by Animal Girl. Ahsoka has never known any other life than one of a slave. She had been taken from her family when she was just 3 years old, and in 10 years since has served 4 masters. Her first master was the Zygerrian enslaver who took her away from her family. While he was indifferent to her, his wife treated her and all the other slaves in their house as if she was part of the family. Ahsoka would have stayed with them for the rest of her life, but it wasn't meant to be. After a trip to Tatooine, her master lost her to a moisture farmer betting on the pod races. Life on the moisture farm wasn't bad. Once again, she was treated like a member of the family, at least by her new master. His wife had wanted an older slave to help her around the house, not a preteen she had to keep an eye on. But everything changed when pirates came to the farm. To keep the pirates from taking everything they owned, her master's wife traded her to them in exchange for them leaving her and her family alone. The pirates had taken her to Felucia, where she was expected to serve them. Of course, their captain wasn't going to let his men take advantage of a 12-year-old girl. One of the serving women constantly kept an eye on her while she worked, and at night she was locked in one of the rooms, not to keep her from running away, but to keep the other pirates from her. Things continued like this for a year, until bounty hunters working for Jabba the Hutt took her away as payment for a job they did with the pirates on Jabba's behalf. Now she belonged to Jabba as one of his slave girls. Fortunately, she was too young still to perform all the tasks that the slave girls at Jabba's palace were expected to do. But she knew in 5 years, when she was 18, things would change. Unless, of course, Jabba sold her, but the odds of that were very slim, since many of Jabba's bounty hunters found her just as attractive as the Twi'lek slave girls. But then, something happened that completely changed her world. The music in the main audience chamber of Jabba's palace was loud, but in the 2 months since her arrival, Ahsoka had learned how to tune it out without missing anything else. The other slave girls, all Twi'lek, danced to the music to entertain their master and his guests. As one of Jabba's slave girls, Ahsoka would have been expected to join them, if not for the fact that she was so young. Some of the bounty hunters would each select one of the slave girls as a companion for the night, but Ahsoka was 5 years away from such legal activities, from the legal age for such activities. Instead, she let her mind wander until a tug on the chain attached to the collar around her neck drew her back. "Soon you will be out there joining them," Jabba said in Huttese, a language Ahsoka had learned over the past few weeks. Ahsoka didn't reply, knowing that her master wasn't looking for one. Suddenly the music stopped, and everyone turned towards the main entrance hall as 2 humans were escorted in by one of Jabba's Twi'lek servants. Both newcomers, a boy and a man, were dressed in a style more common on Onderon than Tatooine, and the boy looked to be about Ahsoka's age. She tried not to look at him, but she couldn't help it. He and the man seemed so nice compared to everyone else in the room. The man spoke with Jabba, a protocol droid translating for them, but Ahsoka didn't hear a word of it. She just kept looking at the boy, and he kept looking at her. Suddenly, Ahsoka felt a shift in the mood of the room. She couldn't explain it, but she could sense things about other beings, and sometimes even saw things before they happened. 3,000, Jabba said angrily, the droid translating. "No more." The agreement was that we would assist in assist you in getting your stolen cargo back. In exchange, you would give us the 50,000 we needed to negotiate with the Trade Federation," the man said. Ahsoka had to give him credit. He was brave. Not many beings dared to stand up to Jabba. She had seen her master feed those that displeased him to both the Rancor and the Sarlacc. The boy pulled at the man's jacket. "What about trade?" the boy said. "What do you propose, boy?" Jabba asked. "Give us the 30,000, and her," the boy said, pointing at Ahsoka. "Aside from me, she's the youngest one here. She can't be of any use to you." "The boy is right, master," the Twi'lek servant said. "The girl is of little use to you. It will, after all, be 5 years before she is old enough to perform all the tasks the other slave girls do." Jabba seemed to be considering this. It was true. There was little Ahsoka could do in his palace. She was too young to service the bounty hunters that worked for him, and he had droids to do the cooking and cleaning. "You're right. She is of no use to me. Take her," Jabba said. One of the Twi'leks came up to Ahsoka and removed the collar from around her neck before leading her out of the room. "I've been sold, haven't I?" Ahsoka asked. "Traded," the Twi'lek answered as she picked up a device from the table that would deactivate the tracking chip in Ahsoka's arm. "But it's basically the same thing. At least you'll be away from this place." "But what if I'm going somewhere worse?" "You won't be. The man in there is Nico Bonteri. He's married to Mina Bonteri, the senator of Onderon. They have no need for slaves. You'll more than likely be set free once you're away from this place." The Twi'lek was right. No sooner had they left the palace than Nico Bonteri set her free. She'd come back to Onderon with them, get some decent clothes, a good meal, some sleep, and a checkup before they would talk about finding a way to send her home. Nico's son Lux stayed by her side the entire trip. He told her all about his home on Onderon and taught her how to play holographic chess. She wasn't very good at it, losing 10 out of 10 games. But with time and practice, she was sure she would beat him one day. When they landed on Onderon, they were met by probably the prettiest woman Ahsoka had ever seen. Judging by the way Lux and his father greeted her, she had to be Senator Bonteri. Ahsoka hung back, not wanting to interrupt the family reunion. "Things went well, I presume," said Mina. "Well, we got 30,000, Nico answered. "That's better than nothing." "We also have a surprise for you, Mother," Lux said. "A surprise? What kind of surprise?" Mina asked as her son ran back to the ship. "It's okay," Lux said to Ahsoka, holding out his hand. Ahsoka took his hand and allowed him to lead her off the ship. Ahsoka stood before Mina, unsure of what the senator would think of her. But she didn't have to worry. Mina pulled her into a hug almost instantly. "What a sweet girl," Mina said. "We rescued her from Jabba's palace," Lux said. "She was a slave there. Lux negotiated her release when Jabba refused to pay us the 20,000 he still owed." "You would have been proud of him," Nico said. "She'll be staying with us until we can return her to her family." Out of all the places she'd stayed at, the Bonteri's estate was Ahsoka's favorite. She was given her own room with a balcony and private fresh air. The room was bigger than any she'd ever seen and open, with warm, natural light coming through the balcony's double glass doors. The closet and dresser were filled with dresses and clothes that looked like they would fit her, almost as if Mina knew she was coming. After her first real bath in a long time, Ahsoka changed into one of the dresses in the closet. It was a deep purple one with a long skirt and long sleeves. She had grown accustomed to the hot weather on Tatooine, so the weather on Onderon was a little cool to her. After putting on a pair of shoes that matched the dress, she left her new room and went in search of the dining room. It didn't take her long to find it. She followed the smell of food the chef had prepared for dinner. She stood in the doorway to the dining room, unsure if she should enter. When Lux saw her, he went up to her and took her hand. "It's okay," Lux said, seeing how nervous she was. "You can come in." "Well, don't you look beautiful," Mina said as Lux led Ahsoka into the dining room. Ahsoka looked down at the ground, almost as if she was too afraid to look at any of them as an equal. The family had no idea how long she had been a slave, but one thing was certain. She had been conditioned to act a certain way. Dinner was served, and Ahsoka joined Lux and his parents at the table. However, it was clear she was still very nervous. She wouldn't take any food until the others did, and spent most of the meal looking at her plate. She only looked up when Mina said something to her. "I'm sorry," she said, indicating she hadn't heard her. "I asked what your favorite dinner is. Cook can make it tomorrow." Ahsoka looked back at her plate. "I don't know," she said. "We were mostly given cold stew or a watery gruel to eat." Mina and Nico looked at each other from across the table. The poor girl had been through so much. They had to do everything they could to make her life comfortable while she was with them. "Perhaps Cook can make a traditional Taruga meal tomorrow," Nico said. "Would you like that?" Ahsoka nodded, but didn't look up. Mina laid a hand on one of Ahsoka's. "It's okay," she said. "You're safe here. You don't have to be afraid anymore." Ahsoka looked at her. She had kind masters before, but nothing at this level. She also felt safe here. She hadn't been forced or expected to do any work since Nico and Lux took her away from Jabba's palace. "We're going to try and get you back to your family," Mina said. "Can you remember anything that might help us?" Ahsoka shook her head. "I was really young when I was taken away," she said. "The first home I can clearly remember is the home of my first master." "How long have you been a slave?" Nico asked. 10 standard years," Ahsoka answered. "And you're about 13, Mina said. Ahsoka nodded. Nico and Mina looked at each other again. There was very little chance of returning Ahsoka to her family. There was a Taruga settlement on Kiros, but it was fairly new, only 5 or 6 years old, so it was unlikely that Ahsoka came from there. Shili was the best choice, but there weren't a lot of cities there, and the tribes tended to move around. It would be impossible to find Ahsoka's family. Lux looked at his parents. "She can stay here, can't she?" he asked. "She has nowhere else to go." They knew he was right. There were orphanages, but they knew Ahsoka wouldn't last long in one of them. Not after the other children learned she was once a slave and conditioned to be submissive. "Would you like to stay here?" Mina asked. "We can petition the Onderon government to let us become your guardians." Ahsoka nodded, and for the first time since entering the dining room, she seemed to relax. She had her freedom back, and she was safe and with people who cared about her. She had all the same opportunities now as other girls her age, and the chance to live a life she wanted. "The poor girl has probably never known love in 10 years, Mina said several hours after dinner. "And she's definitely never been allowed to do what she wants. We'll have to set some ground rules. We can't let her do everything she wants," Nico said as he and his wife sipped wine in the front room. Lux and Ahsoka had gone off to watch a movie on the holonet. "But she'll definitely have more freedom than she did. Let's take things one step at a time. She's still uncomfortable and uneasy. If we force too many rules on her, she may feel like she's back with one of her masters." She's definitely comfortable around Lux. They bonded on the ship. Maybe keeping them together is a good idea. Lux can help her through the transition, and they'll both have a friend that doesn't want anything from them. It was true. Ahsoka hadn't really had a friend in 10 years. Slaves rarely made friends with each other, since they never knew how long they were going to be at the same house, and slaves were forbidden from becoming friends with their master's children. As for Lux, he did have friends, but they were more interested in hanging out at the estate and using his things. Laughter could be heard from the other room. Lux and Ahsoka had obviously found a funny movie to watch. Miko and Mina looked into the room and smiled. Both Lux and Ahsoka were on the couch, drinking pop and sharing a bowl of popcorn while they watched their movie, like two normal teenagers who have known each other for years, not hours. They had to find a way to make this work, and make sure Ahsoka will be allowed to stay with them. Ahsoka felt very nervous as the doctor examined her. Both Mina and Miko had reassured her that she wasn't going to be taken away, and that they only wanted to make sure that, after everything she'd been through, she was healthy. Miko had taken Lux with him to deliver some supplies to a nearby settlement, so Mina had stayed behind as an emotional support for Ahsoka. In the 3 days since she had come to live with them, Ahsoka had grown to trust both of Lux's parents, though it was clear the two teenagers had a special bond. "Well, how is she?" Mina asked the doctor as they left Ahsoka's room. "She's a little small for her age, and her weight is a little low for someone her size, but a few good healthy meals will fix that," the doctor said. "She's a little malnourished, but that's not surprising considering the life she had prior to coming here. Make sure she eats 3 good healthy meals a day and a few healthy snacks, and keep her on the vitamin supplements until further notice. I'll check back in a few weeks to see how she's doing. Other than that, she's in perfect health." This was all good news, but Mina could tell there was more the doctor wanted to tell her. "Is there something else?" she asked. "You said she was a slave before she came here 3 days ago. What does that have to do with anything?" "She's a month pregnant." Okay, now before I sign off, I'd just like to say one thing, and that is if I mispronounce any names of characters or species or planets, I do apologize. I know I probably stumbled over the slavers species a little bit, and for that I do apologize. Okay, also, for you fanfic writers out there, I am putting this out to say, if you'd like me to do a reading of one of your fanfics, please let me know. You can contact me on my Facebook page or my Tumblr account. I will have the link for both in the description section. All you have to do is just send the fanfic parts or the full fanfic, however you wish, to my Tumblr account or my Facebook page, and if I like it, I will do a reading of it. Also, if you're on Wattpad and you would like me to do do a reading of one of your fanfics, let me know on my Wattpad message board. Just tell me your name and the name of the story, and if it's one I have in my library that I've read or I'm currently reading, I'll look through it and see if it's one I'd be interested in doing a reading on. I've read a couple, and I'm going to be honest with you, not all of them. I may like them, but not all of them I feel I would want to do a reading on. They're either just really short or just branch off in a lot of different directions and whatnot. Not that that's bad. I don't want to make any of you who are watching this video and who do write stories on Wattpad, I don't want to make any of you feel bad. It's just some of them I'm just like, no, there's just not enough there for me to do a reading on. But yeah, you can let me know on the message board, and if it's one I do have, I will do a reading on it if I like it. If not, I will do will read through it and see what I think. There are like a few on Wattpad that I would like to do a reading on. I just have to get in touch with the authors via Wattpad before I do the reading, because I do want to get their permission first. A couple of requirements though. First off, please include your name in the fanfic, either at the top or at the bottom, or in the link somewhere. And I mean the name of the author. I mean, if you're submitting for another author, that's fine. Just make sure the author's name is somewhere in the fanfic, either at the top or at the bottom, or somewhere in the link, so I can credit the author. If there's no author name, I'm not going to do a reading of it, okay? I don't want to be accused of stealing someone's work. Also, if it's long, I will be dividing it up between videos like I do with mine. Even one-shots, if it's a long one-shot, I may cut it up into parts and it will become more than a one-shot. I like to keep these videos like under an hour at the most. Secondly, try to keep it clean. If there is stuff in it that I deem inappropriate, I will either gloss over it or just change a few things to make it appropriate. But if there's too much, I won't do a reading on it. I will either skip that chapter, or I will skip over that part of the chapter, or I just won't do a reading of the fanfic in general. Okay, it's just basically, you know, kids may be watching these, and I just don't want them reading anything that's too inappropriate. Just to give you a heads up, okay? I'm not telling you how to write these. It's just I do have a preference. It's not that I don't like reading them. It's just, again, I don't want kids to be reading certain things, and I don't know whether or not kids will be watching these videos or not, so I just kind of want to keep it somewhat clean. Lastly, please be honest. If I learn that somebody submitted a fanfic without the author's permission, I will not only be removing that fanfic corner video from YouTube myself, but I will also not accept any fanfics from that particular person who sent it in, okay? So again, those are my rules for fanfic, for sending in your fanfics. Again, I will do reading, and if you're on Wattpad and I've read your book, or your fanfic, even if it's not done, if I really, really like it, I might reach out to you and say, hey, yeah, look, I really, really liked your fanfic, and I would absolutely love to do a reading on it for my fanfic corner on YouTube. I've actually, like I said, I've got a couple that I need to do that too. I'll probably do that by the end of the week. Try to reach out to the authors and attempt to get their permission to do the reading of those. Just kind of mix it up so it's not just my fanfics on Fanfic Corner anymore. But again, either let me know on Wattpad on my discussion board, or I will reach out to you if I really, really like something. And then you can get back to me with your permission, with like a yay or nay on that. So again, here's for if you want me to do reading on your fanfic. And I will see you guys next time.